let's start with Scott Walker. He's been in the news and he's been in the conversation at this table quite a bit recently. When he was in London, he didn't want to answer a question about evolution. Then he cleaned it up with his staff. Here in D.C., he had to answer questions after being with Rudy Giuliani in New York at a dinner where Rudy Giuliani said President Obama doesn't love America. Scott Walker says these questions are ridiculous, not what the American people care about when they're picking a president.
You've seen in the media a lot of talk over the last few days about these self-manufactured gotcha moments from the media, where they want to talk about things that I don't think most Americans want to talk about. And we're going to leave the nonsense to the media on the side.
Nonsense to the media. Every now and then we ask questions that are probably nonsense. We do that. We're not perfect. But when you get asked about policy issues, he's a governor. Evolution's a fair question. Some people think that's the first question I'd ask a presidential candidate. Probably not even in the top 50. But it's still a fair question. Textbooks, stem cell research. In his last campaign for governor, he was talked much more moderately about abortion. Now he's appealing to evangelicals. Is that a fair question? I mean, what's he trying to do here?
I mean, he's won 3 elections in Wisconsin, and he's actually done so with pretty remarkable message discipline. Sort of in a conservative media cocoon, talking to Charlie Sykes on the radio, using Facebook, paid media, whatever. I'm actually surprised that Walker sort of dug himself into this hole with the Giuliani issue, with telling Dan Balls that he wasn't sure President Obama is a Christian or not. But to your point, these are questions that he's going to have to face from pesky reporters if he wants to step into the national spotlight. The blame the media tactic is not terribly interesting or creative, but it is a sign that he is on the defensive, and he can...
It's the first, when you're blaming the media, you're losing.
Yeah.
Right. Second of all, I've always thought my job as a reporter, of course you ask questions that are relevant to people and they're in the news, but part of my job too is also to test these men and women, to see if they're ready for the big time, to see if they're ready to be a presidential candidate, to see if they're ready to be president. And one way to do that, I learned this covering Bill Clinton a long time ago in Arkansas, is ask the stupidest question I can think of, the most inane, obnoxious question, to see how they respond, because we're testing them. It's not about us. It's not how smart of a question I can ask. But when I asked Bill Clinton a dumb question in the hallways of the Capitol, it kind of was revealing of him. And we learned a lot about Walker this week, and not all of it very good.
And we're going to keep learning about Walker. He has risen in the Republican polls. We'll see how it goes. It's still early in the race. He still says he hasn't completely made up his mind, but it's pretty clear he's leaned pretty far forward. In this speech yesterday that we showed you that little clip from, he was talking to religious broadcasters, and he said he wants to run a positive campaign. He says he wants to talk about what he's for, not beat up his rivals. But listen here, and let me ask you this question as we listen to this sound. Is this about Jeb Bush? Is this about Hillary Clinton? Maybe both?
I realize, unlike some out there, I didn't inherit fame or fortune from my family. I got a bunch of things that were a whole lot better than that.
This is part of his sort of self-styled lunch bucket, you know, hockey dad kind of thing that he's been doing in Wisconsin for a while. We saw this, remember, when at the Packers-Cowboys game, when Chris Christie was in the box with Jerry Jones and Scott Walker was in the stands, you know, freezing his butt off with the cheeseheads. This is how he's going to frame himself as kind of a working-class guy from the Midwest who, to your point, isn't Jeb Bush or Chris Christie or, you know, one of these wealthy people. And, you know, he doesn't want to be seen as a coastal elite.
It could be very effective. We saw Barack Obama do this his way. We saw Bill Clinton do it his way. Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton obviously have problems with connecting with the public from the status they now are and from the families that they're from. This is a smart thing for him to do politically.
Yeah, he likes to bring his own lunch to work and then tweet a picture of it.
And one of the interesting things about running for president, maybe he's going to do battle with the media, and then at other times he'll probably have media charm offensive. Candidates tend to go hot and cold like that. But they're also going to have to answer questions from voters. And voters sometimes ask questions that candidates not so much like. This weekend, I think Scott Walker's going to be at CPAC, right? They have a different forum. They're going to open that up this year. Questions from fellow conservatives, maybe fellow candidates. We'll see how that goes.